I call the Westbrook Planning Board meeting, regular meeting, Tuesday, June 15th, 2021 at 7 p.m., being held at the Performing Arts Center in Westbrook Middle School, 471 Stroutwater Street, Westbrook, to order. Because we can all see each other this evening, we won't have roll call votes. Mask is optional for this meeting. And I'm going to ask the two young alternates to vote this evening. Okay? And do you want to do roll call? Or do you just want to?
We're all set with that.
We're all set? Good. I like that. I am going to ask for the approval of the minutes for June 1st, 2021. I need to move that forward. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay, John moved the item. I need a second, please.
A second.
Jason seconded. Motion was moved by John and seconded by Jason. Is there any comments about the minute?
My name was missing as present.
Ooh, okay. We're very sorry about that. And that will be changed, so when the minutes come out again, it'll be there, okay? With one change, you show of hands if you approve of the minutes. Let the record show that it was unanimous. Becca, would you be good enough to read the first item into record?
Item 2021.22, conditional use, 630 County Road, A1K9 LLC. The applicant is requesting approval to offer boarding services for up to 6 dogs at their existing dog training and daycare facility located at 630 County Road, Tax Map 002, Lot 024B, Zone Industrial Park District, use boarding kennel.
And who is going to make the presentation? Would you come up, please, and use that microphone? Please state who you are and why you're here.
My name is Taylor Gross. I'm the owner of A1K9 LLC. We recently just did a nice renovation on the facility, and I have some nice full boarding kennels that I would like to now offer 24/7 boarding for people that are going on vacations or just need overnight boarding. And also I'd like to add on to my training service and be able to offer 24-hour board and train services, 3 to 4 week board and train services. These are my kennels right here. Custom made. My uncle and I renovated these ourselves. The inside of our facility is 1,700 square feet. We have an indoor rubberized like gym flooring for indoor training. And we also have a little over 2,100 square foot outdoor turf fenced-in space with black screening to be nice and private. We are distanced away from the road, and come October, our driveway is going to be fully tarred with parking spaces for the customers to park in. But right now, that is really the only thing that we're waiting on finishing up. But this is the indoor entrance, and to the left is the indoor training space and indoor play space for the dogs. And as you walk around the corner, which we don't have a picture of, but that's another little open space. In the next months, I'm going to be building a grooming station as well. So pending your approval, any dog that comes for boarding or is with me for an extended stay, I'll be able to do a full grooming for them. I'm looking to either hire somebody or have somebody just do regular baths, nail trims, ear cleanings, and things like that. So overall, I'm looking to just provide a 24-hour canine boarding service that would be a little bit different than any other boarding service, I think, in the state of Maine, because I'm going to stay on site. This property has 2 other commercial units that the owners are currently in the process of getting some tenants out of. And if you look, I don't think the building in front they're going to be able to renovate for any sort of, I think they're going to tear it down. But the building to the right, up front there, yep, right there, they're going to be renovating that, and they have agreed, again, with the understanding from the code enforcement officer that that could be utilized as a commercial space for a 24/7 office. So I'd like to have the boarding be in my facility, and I'd like, whenever I do have clients that I'm boarding for extended stays, I'd like to be able to live in that unit, stay in that unit for a week, 2 weeks, however long I have these dogs for, so that I'm able to be on site 24/7 with these dogs. They'll never have no supervision. I'll be walking distance to them at all times. As a trainer, these dogs are going to get trained, exercised, and conditioned at boarding, whether it's just for an extended stay for somebody on vacation or if they're actually there for a board and train. So overall, I believe that if I'm allowed to provide this service, it's going to improve my business, and customer satisfaction is going to increase dramatically just because of the amount of effort that I'm going to put in willingly.
Questions? We'll ask you to explain them at the end, okay? Comments from the staff?
The applicant has addressed the outstanding issues that staff had provided to them. So your motion is located on page 1 of the agenda, along with the conditions, findings of fact, and conclusions on pages 2 through 3.
Thank you, Jen. I'm going to open the public hearing. Keep in mind that those who have a question or a comment will use the microphone to your right, but my left. And between Becca and Jen and I will compile all of the questions or comments, and we'll ask for clarification at the end of the public hearing. And I now open the public hearing for comments. I now close the public hearing for comments. And since no questions were asked, no answers are needed. Board comments. None? I have one. Could you come up to the microphone? Did you consider doing any landscaping
As far as whereabouts,
around your building?
so around the building, there shouldn't need to be any landscaping done. They're going to be tarring. So where my space is, it's the upstairs floor, and then as you saw in the previous pictures, I have renovated a 2,100 square foot space that's fenced in with pet-safe turf. So as far as anything around there, that's technically not my space to utilize, so that would be something that the owners of the property would have to do as far as landscaping their property.
Do you own the property, or?
No, I do not. I rent this property. I have a lease for 2 years.
Unfortunately, I'm one of the ones that appreciate landscaping, no matter where it is, including industrial parks,
Yep.
downtown Main Street, hiding anything. So keep that in mind whenever you buy a piece of property in Westbrook and come back before us,
Okay.
okay?
By landscaping, do you just mean like making sure the lawn is nice and green? I'm confused at what you mean by landscaping. The property is very nice. This is a very old picture of the property.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The motion can be found on the memo presented to us on page 1.
Mr. Chair? I'll make a motion to grant a conditional use permit for A1K9 LLC for a boarding kennel located at 630 County Road, Tax Map 2, Lot 24B, Zone Industrial Park District, be approved with conditions, and the following findings of fact, conclusions, and conditions as stated on pages 2 through 3 of the staff memo dated June 11th, 2021, are adopted in support of that approval. Condition 1 being, approval is dependent upon and limited to the proposals and plans contained in the application dated May 21, 2021, and supporting documents and oral representations submitted and affirmed by the applicant, and conditions, if any, imposed by the planning board, and any variation from such plans, proposals, and supporting documents and representations are subject to review and approval by the city planner or the planning board.
Thank you. John moved the motion. I need a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Ruth. Motion moved and seconded. Any discussion? I made my comment earlier, so there's no reason to repeat it. All those in favor, raise your hand. Let the record show that it was unanimous. Becca, would you be good enough to read the next item?
Item 2021.11, Site Plan Subdivision, 21 Saco Street, Storage Realty Corporation. The applicant is proposing a mixed-use development with first-floor commercial and 29 residential units on the second, third, and fourth floors. Tax map 028, lots 075 and 077, zone City Center District, residential growth area 1, use dwelling multiple family.
Just for the record, the applicant has requested the item to be tabled to allow time for review of legal. All abutters will receive notification in the mail, postcard notification, in advance of the next meeting. In addition, agendas are posted to the city website approximately 2 weeks in advance of any of our meetings. You may sign up, and I highly recommend this, you may sign up to receive an email notification when a new agenda is posted through the city website. Please contact the planning department for assistance with signing up for the notification. And the motion to table this item is on page 4, but I'm going to ask Jen to say a few words first.
I incorrectly stated that the tabling motion should be to a meeting. It just should be tabled. So in the motion that is written, you can strike everything after 21 Saco Street be tabled. So you don't need to say anything after that point. The applicant will submit, or rather, once they have had their legal review, we will then put them on the next available agenda.
Thank you, Jen. I need a motion to move forward. Yes.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that the site plan subdivision application for Storage Realty Corporation for a mixed-use development with first-floor commercial and 29 residential units located at 29 Saco Street be tabled.
Thank you, Robin.
Sure.
Moved by Robin. I need a second, please.
Second.
Seconded by, don't tell me, I need to learn. Karen. Moved by Robin, and seconded by Karen to table the motion. Raise your hand if you're in favor. Let the record show that it was unanimous. Becca, can you read the third item into record?
Item 2021.16, referral from City Council, amendment to the land use ordinance, section 335-1.8 definitions, New Section 335-2.29.1, Solar Energy System. Article 5, Zoning Districts, Section 335, Attachment 1, Table 1, Land Use Table. The proposed amendment establishes a solar energy system ordinance. The intent of this ordinance is to define residential, commercial, and accessory solar energy system uses, establish performance standards, and determine appropriate districts for each use throughout the community.
Thank you, Becca. Staff presentation by Jenny.
From our workshop meeting, there was two major comments that were raised by the board members. One was concern that the solar components were being treated as part of the roof system and thus be subjected to height restrictions, and the concern on tree clearing in the rural district for commercial solar operations. We looked at the current ordinance where we have components like a solar panel, and we treat chimneys and antennas differently. So we do not call those part of the intricate structure of the building, and so they do not have to comply with the structural height requirements, but they do have a 10-foot limitation, which seems to be more than ample if we're talking about solar arrays. It's also, it's the same consistent stance in shoreline zoning, so we're using consistent language. We're borrowing that and putting it into this section as it relates to height limitations. On the rural district, Becca did a lot of homework with some solar experts to find out how we could try to balance the impact of clearing versus the benefits of solar energy, and what ways in which that we could enhance those types of projects or limit those projects in sensitive areas. We were looking at trying to ensure that where a project is going to be sited, are there already high-value habitat areas? If so, then those are areas that we would not want to see cleared. If we are going to allow for a solar array in the rural district, we would probably want to try to create another ecosystem that is right now needing help, which is the meadow system, so that pollinators are provided a place to be as well. So we were trying to look at the balancing needs of various ecosystems and also understanding the need for solar and trying to reduce our carbon footprint. So we increased a number of standards in the rural district for any type of commercial solar operation. So what we've offered the board tonight is two options as it relates to commercial SESs in the rural district. If you agree that the standards are sufficient to protect the rural district, then the document is fine to move forward to the city council. If you are still concerned as a board that the impacts are still not as well known and maybe you'd like to defer that particular piece to a later date, what we would ask is that the text that is in red in your document, you'll need to make a motion to strike the red text out of the document, and that would remove commercial SESs out of the rural district. So we've kind of provided you two options to discuss, and whichever option that the board decides on is what we will move forward to the city council.
Thank you, Jen. I'm going to move to the public hearing section. Again, if you have any comments, come to the left microphone. Public hearing open. Public hearing closed. Since there were no questions, no answers are needed. Board comments and discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so through you to Jenny, I get it that it's a passive commercial use in the sense that you install the solar array and then aside from maintenance, you really don't have to do anything else. But what other kinds of commercial uses are permitted in the rural district?
question. You can have an adult daycare center, a bed and breakfast, a campground, a cemetery, a church, a daycare center, obviously residential, extractive industry, farming, golf course, greenhouse or florist, a municipal facility, a neighborhood grocery store, telecommunication facility, telecommunications tower, and a veterinary clinic.
Thank you.
Are you all right, John?
Yeah, I'm just, my concern obviously is that someone would, buy a sizable piece of rural property, level it, and would have it covered with solar arrays, right? That's the concern, that people might not like that. Although, having said that, anyone could buy a large rural district and level it themselves, and they don't need anyone's permission to do that. So in terms of other uses, it's clearly not as, for lack of a better word, disruptive to neighbors as extraction or anything like that. And so it's probably more akin to farming than anything else if we really want to get down to it. So I guess, and in light of we don't have anyone objecting, I guess I'm okay with it as long as we have the protections that everyone was very careful to put these in. That, again, we don't want to, no one wants to drive out to the farmlands and see nothing but solar panels, right? That's the fear. And so as long as we put protections in that mimic, as we said, it's kind of shoreline protection, that there is going to have to be some vegetation. They literally can't stick a solar array on every square inch of the property. I think you can protect as much as you can. For example, a gravel pit, again, would be far less attractive. And this is something that is beneficial to everyone. So I think I'm okay with it.
Thank you, John. Anyone else? Larry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with John, because I was definitely one to propose to worry about clear cutting on the farmlands or the trees, but I think with the protection, especially with the wildlife that we do have in these areas, if each business comes before us, or we have the opportunity to at least object or allow each commercial business to do what they're going to do per certain land. So with the fisheries and the wildlife protection part of it, I feel that it would be okay, because they still have to come into our board's meetings to see if we can allow them to put in a full-size setup to clear cut, which I would not still be a proposed plan on. So for the record, if that ever comes into play, I want to be noted that I'm not in subject to clear cut for just to put a solar panel in. So thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Anyone else? Yes, Robert?
I have one that goes to Jenny, so let me wait till she can focus.
Just to sort of dovetail off of what the two comments that were just stated, the gross density factor in the rural district is 40%, which means 40% of the lot can be covered. But understanding that a solar array doesn't always have complete gravel coverage, that we have afforded a little bit of flexibility with that particular statement. So if somebody was to transform it into a meadow, then there could be that potential where you would be above the 40% criteria of a rural lot.
How high?
So I guess I So the statement right now is lot coverage, final ground treatment and site layout shall be taken into consideration in determining lot coverage. So whether we want to be stricter in the rural district as it relates to that particular standards for ground mounted, we could say the perimeter of the solar array.
The whole array, the fenced area.
Yeah, the fenced-in area. So taking the fenced-in area of the solar array cannot be more than 40% of the lot coverage. We could say that if that was a concern about too much in the rural district.
Well, I guess that begs the question. So if the language went in as is, final ground treatment site layout shall be taken into consideration when determining lot coverage, and an applicant comes before you and they have a meadow and the whole 9 yards, but they're covering 60%, let's just say, how is density treated? Would that be allowed or not allowed?
So that standard was written, it is a little ambiguous or there were other examples of many different ways of determining lot coverage in other communities and how they handle their solar ordinances. Some did handle it with the aggregate of the entire array, and others did it with the footprint of the impervious area that's underneath, and others go even less than that and actually just take the angle of the panel
Really?
itself. So instead of picking which one of those standards we were going to apply to the entire community, because it'd be very different in the rural versus some of the other districts where maybe you don't want to limit it down to such a small number, it was left in that manner, in that you would take a look at the site, you would take a look at the ground treatment underneath to determine how to handle that lot coverage. It would ultimately be the board's decision of how that lot coverage is handled and determined in that case. There may be a suggestion brought forward by the applicant, but it would be the board to determine which strategy to use.
Yeah, and I know that you said this was reviewed by the city solicitor. So as long as, I think, like Larry was saying, as long as we've got the ability for everyone who comes before us, we'll have a different situation, as you said, to say, whoa, that's too much, or something like that. As long as we've got that ability, I feel better about it.
Okay. I'm sorry, Robin.
I'm not, I think actually, and I apologize because I wasn't here for the workshop. I was looking back at the previous page, actually, one of the things in red where you say, in the rural district, a CSES shall create a pollinator-friendly habitat with meadow native grasses where feasible within the solar complex. Is that sort of too subjective? If that's our goal, do we need to require a certain percentage? Maybe, I guess I haven't been thinking about it as long as you guys, but it seems like that could be taken a lot of different ways.
So looking at what we have just recently approved, which is the city
The
landfills,
Yeah.
we could not have put a true meadow on
Okay.
that particular site because it had to be a gravel top
Right.
for that type of system to work, where it was an on-the-top type system. Typically, if they are anchored into the ground, that gives you more flexibility with what the ground treatment typically is, which if they're looking to keep their costs down to the greatest extent practical, they're not going to bring in gravels to gravel out
Right.
the area. So it would be in their best interest to allow it to be
meadow.
some sort of green.
I get, okay, that helps me. I was thinking it was more subjective. We don't want to toss the seed to meadow it, but you're thinking more like logistically. You can't grow stuff on the landfill. Okay, I'm comfortable with that then. Yep, thanks.
Okay, Robert? Anyone else? Okay. The memo is on page 6. Remember, we have two choices. Who would like to move this motion forward?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion.
Robin?
And I plan to just stick with the motion here, if anybody is interested. I'd like to make a motion to recommend the proposed amendment to the Land Use Ordinance 335-1.8 definitions, new section 335-2.29.1, solar energy system, Article 5, zoning districts, 335, Attachment 1, Table 1, Land Use Table, to City Council for adoption. There will be a test. Is that it? Is there more?
Nope.
Okay.
I need a second, please.
Second?
Thank you, Karen. Moved by Robin, seconded by Karen. Any discussion? Raise your hand if you're in favor. Let the record show that it was unanimous. I need a motion to go into workshop session, please.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Jason. Moved by Jason. I need a second, please. Thank you, Larry. Seconded by Larry. Motion to move into workshop by Jason and seconded by Larry. Raise your hand if you're in favor. Those against? Okay. 6 in favor. So it was unanimous. Becca, would you be good enough to read the next item into the record?
Yes. Item 2021.20, Site Plan Subdivision, 500 Spring Street, Westbrook Housing Group, LLC. The applicant is requesting a 59 single-family residential lot subdivision with 4 commercial lots along Spring Street, located at the former Twin Falls Golf Course. Tax map 008, lot 008B, zone residential growth area 1, shoreland overlay zone, limited residential and resource protection. Use dwelling single family.
Thank you, Becca. This is being presented by, Sean Frank.
Chairman, members of the board, my name is Sean Frank. I'm a civil engineer with Saco Technics. With me tonight is the owner of the property, Gary Emmons of Westbrook Housing Group, LLC, as well as his project manager, Michael Barton, and a couple of my associates from Saco Technics, Joe DeLisa-Feliz and Dan Danvers. This is a property that some members of the board are very intimate with in terms of a process we went through to propose a subdivision for 36 single-family homes and the 4 commercial lots back through 2017 and 2018. That actually did obtain final subdivision approval in 2018. Unfortunately, the economics just didn't work. As we all know, it's a pretty piece of property out there, but there's a lot of ups and downs. It was obviously manufactured to be a golf course, if you will. So there is a lot of movement of dirt that has to occur to kind of make us all work, as well as the infrastructure. As you may recall, or just to let you know, from the RGA1, it's 50.5 acres within the RGA1 district. It actually allows 169 units. What we're proposing under this scenario now is 59 single-family homes. The overall concept is pretty much along our original, which is that we're going to have a loop road coming in off from Spring Street. In this case, we're going to add in a second interior access road, which would allow us access to those additional lots. Obviously, the lot sizes are a little bit smaller in the back of the site, but we've actually worked closely with the development team in terms of the different homes that they would be proposing within there, and making sure that the width, which is our biggest concern in terms of the frontages, would all work. These are proposed to be city streets. In terms of the actual construction associated, which would include curbing and sidewalks, storm drain system consisting of catch basins and subsurface storm drain pipes, stormwater management consisting of a wet pond and an under-drain soil filter, which would treat the runoff and detain it to current standards prior to outletting it to the site. Sanitary sewer is currently available via the pump station at Myers Lane. In accordance with that original approval, that pump station would be abandoned a new pump station installed as part of this project down at the low spot. The sewer would be extended from Miles Lane down to that project. This board recently approved a condominium project on the abutting land, the 3 acres or so that was retained with the clubhouse. We have their plan set, and we'll coordinate with them in terms of, there is an easement across the property so that we can extend that sewer across. So that basically we'll have gravity coming from Miles Lane all through this project down to our pump station, and then the force main coming from the station itself back to Miles Lane to connect back into the municipal system again. Municipal water is available within Spring Street, would be extended. Hydrants installed throughout in accordance with the requirements of the fire department. Again, as part of the nice part, I guess, of the fact that we've gone through some processes involved with this, we've had some preliminary discussions with the Presumpscot Regional Land Trust, and obviously those need to be refined, in both with city staff, your recreational committee, and the trust. As you may recall, there's some land on the other side of the Presumpscot River, which currently has a conservation easement. That land will actually be conveyed to the land trust. There's about 8 acres on our side of the river, which will also be conveyed to the land trust. Easements provided for trails. At the pump station itself, we'll have a small parking area and a trail going to to provide access to the trailhead from there. There will be a new sidewalk along Spring Street, along our frontage, which will tie into the sidewalk required for the abutting property, and from that would allow access to those trails going up along the river. The 4 commercial lots are just proposed at this point in time as subdivision along Spring Street. Specific uses, we don't have any specific uses for those right now. Our main emphasis really is the 59 single-family house lots. But because it is Spring Street, and because they are allowed, which again is going to be more for neighborhood types of uses, small medical offices, those types of things, we did want to provide those types of opportunities along the Spring Street frontage, with the understanding with this board that those, prior to any development on those 4 lots, that would have to come back to this board for review and approval. This also had approvals for the Army Corps of Engineers for wetland impacts. The wetland impacts are pretty much the same, so, but we do have to get those re-permitted. We have reached out to them. We also sent the same plan to the Maine Department of Environmental Protection, because we had site location and development permit with them, as well as an NRPA wetland alteration permit. And we will be in the process of obviously amending those permits as we go through the approval process with you folks as well. Again, we're just getting into the real design associated with this. We have received our staff review comments. We did make some initial comments back to them. Number one, we don't have any major issues with anything that staff came up with. Again, we have had our initial conversations with the Presumpscot River Land Trust. We will have access from the sidewalk on Spring Street to those trails. There is an existing building that's there now that's intended to be removed. And again, we'll finalize the details of that. We have renamed the streets, understanding that those still have to go through 911. Again, the pump station, and that is all be worked out in terms of details. We will be proposing an area for a proposed cluster mailbox with some off-street parking associated with that. And we'll certainly make sure that we coordinate everything with that abutting condominium project. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I know this is just sketch plan for you folks, and this is your initial chance to review it. This is obviously a higher density than what we were looking at back in 2018, but I would remind the board it is still a great deal less than the total allowable units that could be proposed on this piece of property. I think the overall intention is the same, is to provide a nice neighborhood of single-family homes within this location. We think it's a unique piece of property, and we just think it still is a wonderful project with the 59 versus the 36 houses. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions me or the team that are with me that the planning board may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Staff comments?
I think Sean did a great job in providing us his overview. The only comment that I will make is from an ordinance standpoint, this project is much more in keeping with what our ordinance was looking to achieve in the RGA1 as far as trying to increase density where we have sewer and water and services. So we see this project as an improvement to the area. There will be much-needed single-family home housing stock being provided through this project, and we look forward to the next iteration of the plans.
Thank you. I'm going to open the public comment section. Anyone who has a public comment?
Is this on? Great.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. My name is Maris Bickford. I live at 535 Spring Street. I think this is a wonderful project, but I am dismayed to imagine that there will be even more traffic speeding by on Spring Street in front of my house. I wonder whether there is some consideration about better traffic control that will be exacerbated by the addition of these single-family houses. Thank you.
Thank you, Maris. Your name, please?
Jerry Chastain. I live at 17 Miles Lane, the one with the pump house on the property. The property that they plan on doing, the first one, the flagship, we apologize, we had a death in the family, we're unable to make that one. But what we are curious about, what we're going to do about privacy of the existing neighborhoods. And the light pollution and the noise pollution, because these go into our backyards. And again, I was going to address traffic, but as we live in a cul-de-sac, we have only one way in and one way out. We get locked in during traffic. People pay no heed to us, and when we try to pull out, they speed up to block us. We need some form of control in that aspect.
Thank you. Is that it? Super. Thank you. Anyone else? Public comment session is closed. Sean, you're up. I saw actually 3 questions. One was traffic. Do you want to address that?
Am I back on? There we go. I'm back on again. Obviously, we need to update our traffic study. As I recall, for the number of lots we were looking at before, we were really just looking at improvements at our intersection. As you folks know, the city is currently doing improvements on Spring Street, consistent of basically a signalized intersection at this point in time with Eisenhower Drive. My understanding is the other end of Eisenhower on Saco Street will have a light added to it as well as some improvements along William Clark Drive down at the Saco Street intersection to try to allow some better flow of traffic there during those hours. So, from our overall traffic, we will not require a traffic movement permit from the state. It will be through the city. And again, our anticipation is that we will be looking at improvements at the intersection itself, specifically at the one with Jacqueline Way. We do appreciate the fact that, there is a good deal of traffic on Spring Street. We do think that the light, obviously, at Eisenhower Drive will certainly improve that situation in terms of providing gaps for people to get in and out. But once we have that traffic study, that will be provided to city staff, and certainly we will work closely with them in terms of any potential off-site impacts. In terms of impacts on the abutting property, especially the lots upon Miles Lane, I would assume that perhaps the abutting project, which has been recently approved, was probably more, if you will, of an abutter to them. As you can see, we basically have 3 lots, if you will, that would be abutting almost really when it comes down to it, 1 lot that is along Miles Lane. There's a single-family house lots. Our anticipation is that the back portion of that lot will be pretty much what it is today. That the driveway is not going to be extended all the way to the back of the lot. That basically the back of those lots will be pretty much today what they were tomorrow. But certainly we will have the required streetlights along the streets, and we will have single-family houses within the lots, no different than the single-family houses along Miles Lane. So we think it'll be very in keeping with the neighborhood. Those are the two I had, Mr. Chairman. Did I miss something?
The noise pollution,
Again, I don't anticipate this being out of the ordinary. It's a residential neighborhood. When there will be obviously noise associated with the initial construction, which is certainly, again, nothing unusual. There are requirements for the city in terms of when you can begin and end construction. But once the construction is complete, this will be a single-family neighborhood, which will be very in keeping with the Miles Lane neighborhood and all the recent development within that area. So we think we'll be very in keeping with the existing character of the neighborhood, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, Sean. Don't go away, because we still have the board's comments. Becca and Jen, have I covered all the questions? Okay. Let's move down to the board comments. Any questions or comments from the board, please? Jason?
Yeah, so when I first saw this plan, my first thought was trail connectivity, because back behind there's some great trails. Discovered a lot of them during the pandemic back there. And so I'm really happy to see the Regional Land Trust agreement here with the suggestions they made. And I'm hoping you can accommodate their suggestions there. And also, will there be sidewalks on both sides of the streets within the development?
Our anticipation would just be sidewalks on one side. And again, from our standpoint, especially when you have a close-knit neighborhood like this, where basically there's no through traffic, the traffic you're going to have within the neighborhood is pretty much going to be for the neighborhood, is that, you know, a sidewalk on one side provides that good pedestrian access, if you will, and still tries to limit, you know, the overall impervious area associated with the development. Sure. Obviously, the more pavement you add, then just that more impervious area we're adding to the overall development.
All right. And also, I'd just like to comment that I like seeing the commercial there on Spring Street. I think that's a nice little addition, and it should be interesting to see what might develop there.
Well, we think there's certainly neighborhoods growing up over there, so we do think that there could be some nice uses for those commercial lots down the road.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Larry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm also enjoying the fact with the Portland Regional Land Trust as well, especially with the trails that we have connecting, especially how they will work with the neighborhoods so people can use the access to get to the rivers and so forth. It's a big plus. One of the major comments that I like about this project is it is single-family homes. I'd be curious to see what levels of homes are going to be developed in the next future meetings. What type of price range we're looking at some of these homes. Are they going to be garages, setbacks, where they are? I can see where the three abutting properties are. They are longer, they're 1 acres basically per lot size, so I can see how they would have a buffer, but I still feel that with lights coming in through the neighborhood, there should be possibly look into some kind of buffers for the neighbors, whether it be a tree line, landscaping, something to block the lights, something, not talking fencing, I like natural buffers, maybe for some of the noise, some of the light control would be something to definitely look forward to. Different variations of the houses, not just cookie-style cutter houses. I see it is a nice neighborhood, but we can definitely, if we work on designs to at least mix and match it so it's not looking the same type. I don't know who you're looking to have develop the property yet from, but I would definitely look forward to seeing what your designs are coming in the future.
Yeah, I would say, again, they did have, working with the design team, they did have 5 or 6 house types that they were talking about. Again, that was the point in terms of really looking at the widths of the lots, because it always comes down to width when it comes down to it in these things, in terms of, like you say, in terms of here's the width of the lot, you take out the side setbacks, how much does that leave you in terms of being able to provide a house with a garage associated with that? So we did spend some time up front associated with that, and I'm sure as part of our next submission to you, we can give you some general idea of what we're talking about for some of the house types we're proposing out there.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Someone else? Robin?
Thanks. It's funny you should mention that, because I've been looking at these, trying to figure out what the sizes should be, and I think it'll be interesting that it's a challenge in long, narrow lots to place garages and not have the garages out front, which I think this board has established they don't love, by and large.
It's funny, I've heard that before, actually.
Yeah, have you?
Yes.
But these aren't super wide lots, and this isn't my problem per se, but I'm curious, some of these lots on the south side are so tight to the shoreland zone. I'm just curious, I could see a homeowner, if they don't have a garage, trying to build one behind their house someday, or an expansion, and they're gonna be hemmed in.
But again, I think you can see on the width of those, and again, we can certainly provide you some of the house types is what they're talking about. And I think the other part about this is, again, because of the topographical changes, what we're gonna look at is a lot, I think, is a lot of walkout basements on a lot of these. So I think that provides another level of detail to these houses that we can have. Where from the roadside, it would look like, you know, a 1 or 2 story house, but at the same time, you'd have the walkout basement, perhaps with a patio associated with that, as well as decks on the first or second floor. So I do think this is a unique piece of property from that standpoint. And I do think that's why, again, width was the important part for us. And again, we did get specific numbers from the design team, so again, we can provide that to you.
Paying attention to that. Actually, one of my main comments was I feel like we need to see it with topo, which I'm sure we will next time, because I know it's rolling, but it's quite rolling. I remember the sidewalk we did years and years. Was it snowing? Am I dreaming?
December 2017.
The sidewalk we did for the previous part was snowing. Thank you.
It was, you're right, it was December of 17, if I remember right.
I do remember it. Okay, so obviously this is early days. I also appreciate the accommodation, the comments from Presumpscot Regional Land Trust. The second to the last bullet point talks about a trail easement on the lots on the north or northeast of the project to allow for connectivity to the school trails and the ones that cross Landing Road.
Yes.
And, you know, that interests me. I see a lot of use of that. And I don't know why you have this common space to homeowner association between 16 and 17, and they refer to that as a stormwater lot.
That's what it will be. That's our anticipation is, but perhaps, I do think that a lot of times we can accommodate both, if you will, you know, is
right.
A trail on top of the berm, if you will, associated with what we're talking about from a stormwater management. It's just that you may recall when we did the original design, that large open space in the middle was a wet pond, which we thought provided a nice aesthetic feature to those lots, as well as provided, you know, the treatment and stormwater management that we needed. But we are thinking that that back portion is going to need some additional stormwater and treatment associated with it. So that's kind of our holder spot, if you will. We're certainly anticipating that we're going to need another BMP associated with the proposed development.
Okay. I'm having trouble with the echo, so I got like 80%, but sounds good.
So Robin, the area that has been discussed is that small lot section?
For stormwater?
For stormwater.
Not for a path?
Both. It could perform 2 duties, as stormwater and a path system to the rear of the property to connect to a potential trail system someday.
Great.
I would certainly think that we could accommodate that. Now, again, I don't have a final size associated with what we need for that BMP, but once we have that, I'm sure we can work out a trail to connect the sidewalk along the road to the back of that property.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing it develop. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I had a question. The 4 commercial lots, do you anticipate tenants? What's the
Again,
hope?
we don't have any specific tenants at this point. This proposal would just be to allow the subdivision of the lots, if you will. We have included the impervious area associated with that within our stormwater management for the wet pond. But each one of those lots prior to being developed would actually have to come back to this board for site plan approval, where you could look at the architecture of the buildings and the traffic patterns and landscaping and those types of things. So again, this is just to allow the division of lots to basically allow us to market the lots more than anything else.
So to have a mixed use.
Yes.
So is any of this in flood zone area?
There is down along the river itself, yes.
Okay. So am I looking at some of the lots that would be near the flood zone?
Pretty much, I think, where we have the shoreline zone, which I think is actually RP, as I remember right, which was one of the notes, is pretty much encompasses the area of the floodplain. there is a specific elevation on it, and again, I'll be sure to identify that for you better. But there will be no building of lots, obviously, within the floodplain area itself.
It was just interesting. I noticed when all of the grass started to grow and it was no longer a golf course, it seemed that there was a lot of water on the road, and the Spring Street got quite broken up. And I wondered if it just seemed odd that the land, when it wasn't being mowed and taken care of, all of a sudden there was more drainage, which was odd.
Yeah,
And may have had nothing to do with that property.
I think Jenny might know about it, but I think it might have something more to do with the driveway area and that type of thing
Okay.
right there, so.
Just an observation. When I would drive Spring Street, I was like, it seems to be wet when there was never wet before.
Yes, and so that has been actually a concern of our Public Services Department, that we are looking to have this project address as part of its project, so that we can keep the water that, right now, the concern is the water that's coming off of the properties to the easterly side of Spring Street continues to drain into the street, and whether it was during the course of the tree clearing activity that occurred during the first project that blocked drainage, we're not exactly sure, but it seemed to exacerbate the situation. So that is what we are seeing. Once that the proper drainage is addressed off of the road, there shouldn't be any issues.
Okay, Karen?
Yes, thank you.
John?
So I also remember the site walk back in December, and I think there were actually some members of the Land Trust with us at that time as well. I distinctly remember that ravine on the northeasterly that was impressive to see. So I'm happy to see the sidewalk along Spring Street, although, I mean, everyone knows when we come back for public hearing, you're going to hear about traffic. Spring Street is just a nightmare in the morning and the afternoon. It just is. And so that's something that you're going to get an earful of, so you better be prepared. I really don't have an issue with the sidewalk on one side. I'm looking at it, I don't have an issue with that. Very happy to see the conservation area, the trails, all of that. Be interested to see, if we're going to be able to, have a parking or some kind of limited signage so people know it's there. But all in all, I like it. I liked it the first time around, and I like it this time as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Sean, on the last go-around, how many homes were proposed?
36, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so you've increased it to 59.
Correct.
Okay. I think it's a much better use of the property. And just for my clarity, and for those at home, you will be continuing the sidewalk that will be built by the condominiums directly next to your lot now?
That's my understanding, Mr. Chairman. Again, I did get a set of plans from them today, as a matter of fact, so that we will tie into their sidewalk and continue that along our frontage, along Spring Street, which then gets us to an existing easement that the Portland Trails, Penobscot River Trail already has, which then allows them to go along the back of our property, if you will, and then tie into the easement that we're providing all along the river, so that'll allow that connection, if you will, between the trails.
Good. And are you going to, as you already know, would prefer two sidewalks, one on each side of the street, but one, I feel very much like John, I wouldn't be that upset if there's no two, but don't forget about the landscaping, trees, lined street.
Exactly, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I forget what we had before, but I'm sure whatever that was in terms of the street tree requirements, that we will carry that through in terms of this proposal as well.
Okay. And the parking for those who want to use the trail, are you going to provide any parking areas on site that residents or non-residents can go and park and walk on the trails?
That's what we did, because actually the pump station will be a city pump station, will be built to city specs. That portion of the property will be conveyed to the city, which will include the pump station, will actually include a small parking area. I think we had 3 or 4 parking spaces there. And from that will be a connection with a little sign type of thing, just to introduce some folks, that would get them from the parking down to the proposed trails. Now, that's the one trail that we would be constructing, if you will, from the parking down towards the river. The trail within or along the river itself will actually be constructed by the land trust, just because they're certainly much better, or certainly that's their forte, if you will, in terms of building the trails. So we'll provide the easement, and they'll actually build the trails.
Okay. And that looks good. And I also really appreciate the 2 roads, and they're going to be city roads. I even like that better. And because you can always should have, would have, could have when the ambulance come and the and the police and fire trucks, especially when you have children playing around. I like that the concept is going to be city streets. I really do. Thank you. And when do you plan on coming before us again?
We're starting the design process now. Probably my next step, Mr. Chairman, is going to be the DEP. I'm still trying to specify exactly what we need to submit to them because, again, just from a timing perspective, they're usually the longer review period. So I'll probably concentrate in terms of making a submission to them, hopefully within the next few weeks, with our intent to be back in front of you folks, hopefully in the next 3 or 4 months. Again, with the understanding that I know we can't get final approval without the DEP permit in our hand, but at least hopefully to get you some additional information in this regard, because what I don't want to do is come back to you, let's say 6 months from now and say, here we are, we got our DEP permit, could you give us final, please? So certainly we'll be back to see you in the interim, if you will, with some additional information so that we can, including the traffic study, the topography, the house types, and those types of things, so we can get your feedback on some of those things.
That's good. That's very good. Just be aware that Becker's and Jen's dance card gets filled up awfully fast. They're really popular, they think. Thank you, Sean, very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn from the workshop. Could somebody make that motion?
May I ask a follow-up question, please?
Usually we don't allow that.
She can come
I-
talk to.
You are more than welcome to come to talk to, you're more than glad to come to talk to Jen and Becker afterwards.
Oh, no follow-up questions allowed?
The public hearing, the public comment section is over.
Oh, sorry. Well, I certainly will be speaking with them.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second.
Moved by John, seconded by Robin. All those in favor, raise your hand. Let the record show that it was unanimous. Tonight's meeting is over.